February the 4th, 2025. Pledge of Allegiance, please. Everybody stand. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Roll call. Director Krokel.
Here.
Director Hansen.
Here.
Director Ballantyne.
Here.
Director Parker is here. Director Allrood is out sick today, so I'll be emceeing the meeting. Community announcements and public comments. Items not on the agenda. Are there any public announcements?
The agenda for.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah.
I did. Approval of the agenda, a motion and second.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Was there any changes?
Oh, yeah. Dr. Smith, any changes to the agenda?
No, but when we get to the consent agenda, I have a couple of updates.
Okay.
Okay. I'll
Is there any public comment on the agenda? So it's been motioned by Director Krokel, seconded by Director Hansen. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 4-0. Community announcements, public comments on the items not on the agenda. Any community announcements from the public or board member?
I didn't bring a flyer, but we have Plain Crazy Saturday on February 15th, day after Valentine's Day. Very interesting speaker, Michael, I don't know if I'll say his name right, Schrack. He's going to give us a presentation on UFO retrievals, which is interesting. He's done this all over the United States. I'm already getting reservations. I think we'll have a full house. He told me that we are in the epicenter of sightings. So, and there'll be some people in the audience, well known to our aviation community, that have had, I guess you could say, close encounters. But I think it would be an interesting presentation. And my dad worked at Wright Field from 1936 to 1951, was there in 1947. I just remember him being very excited and talking about UFOs. I was pretty little. I didn't know what he was talking about. But it's something that, you know, people are interested in. So that's will be 11 a.m. here in the boardroom.
Thank you, Director Hansen. Any other community announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, consent agenda. Staff tells me there's a change to the wording on one of the items in the consent.
If it pleases the board, staff would recommend that the California University Los Angeles Uncrewed Aerial System competition be tabled at this time. We just need to housekeep that, get correct nomenclature in there.
So item F is going to be removed from the consent.
And then just to highlight for everyone, item C, the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, each Kern County Student Career Day. In working with the Superintendent of Schools there, we have updated the verbiage in that. So what you have in your package is a clean copy of the updated verbiage. And if you wanted to see the changes, there's behind that a red line copy of what it used to be and went forward. And in all seriousness, I agreed totally with what the superintendent brought forward. It was boilerplate from last year. That's not a good answer. I probably should have reviewed it still more in depth, even though it was boilerplate, but I did not. I just think the verbiage we had in there maybe implied some behaviors we didn't like. I think this is a much cleaner copy and it really tells the story better. So that's all I had for the board.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Is there any board comment on the consent agenda? Is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
I'm sorry, Andrew.
Yeah,
I had a question about the consent agenda.
Sure.
Item E, the amateur rocketry tournament. Where do they launch from?
The dry lake bed out. If you know where the track, Honda track is out there,
Yes.
if you go down Norelia, the road that turns to the north side of it. So as soon as if you're looking at the
Is
track,
it Cone, Charlie?
yeah,
Okay,
It's common dry lake then.
Right, but if you
South
turn,
Garlock, Red Rock, Randsburg Road.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not an airport.
if you
property.
turn, if you
Okay.
turn on that road, follow it to the dirt and then take it all the way around. It's not near the Alfalfa Ranch, but that's how you get to it. I've been out there many
I've
times.
never driven. We always flew out there.
It is a dirt road. They do have facilities out there. It's actually pretty nice.
It's neat, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious whether it was on airport property or not. That's fine, thanks.
All right, I'll take a motion and second on items A through E on the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Director Ballantyne,
I'll second.
seconded by Director Kroepel. Is there anybody opposed to this measure? Seeing none, motion passes 4-0. Moving on to number 4, action items, resolution amending board policy 700. Staff?
So this is the fuels policy that is also included in your packet. I hope you've all had a chance to review that. Our fuels experts, Harold, et cetera, are good with the numbers in here, as am I. And my recommendation is for approval of that change to the 700. There was some discussion whether we should go with the new policy 800 or do this. I'm not a big form before substance guy. I like substance. So the important thing is that we have the new fuel policy and that it's in there and published. Where we put it is less exciting to me.
Mhm.
I have a question for council. Does it have your blessing, Scott?
Yeah, I reviewed it and I sent staff my comments last week, and they were just minor questions about some of the numbers in there. So it was my recommendation that it go in board policy 700 because we already have a fuel section in there. Is section 4. This just is article 4. This just follows that as article 5. So that one's on me as opposed to a new policy. But yes, I have reviewed it and provided all my comments to staff.
All right, thank you. Then I'm good to make a motion.
Is there any other board comments on item 4?
Yeah, I have a question. You said the numbers have been looked at. Are those numbers based on other airports or where do those numbers come from?
So Harold tells me that's industry standard
Okay,
out there. So yes, based on other airports and roughly what is charged in flowage, storage, et cetera.
okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Any other board comments? Is there any public comments on item 4? Seeing none, I'll take a motion in a second.
I made a motion.
Motion by Director Ballantyne,
I'll second.
seconded by Director Krokel. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 4-0. Item 5, reports, Director of Administration.
Good afternoon. These are the financials for ending December 31st, 2024. So we're halfway through the year for our budget year. Bank balance increased 325,000. Operating revenue for ending the year we're at 51%. Operating expenses were at 46%. As I mentioned, I'm gonna do a deep dive into see where we're at as we do the mid-year. We'll come back maybe with a budget revision now that we kind of have a couple new board members, kind of go through some things, maybe make some small tweaks as we kind of make some adjustments, work with the directors if there's any adjustments we need to make on any of the capital projects that we're working on. Now that we had a couple things that kind of came up here at the beginning part of the year. Fuel sales, we had 93,000 gallons. On the AR, the only two, same as we've had, is the High Desert Wireless. They did send us another payment in January for $100. So hoping that they'll get paid off here in the we're getting slowly but surely getting there. Dragon Aviation, have not received a payment from them, but you'll be discussing them further in closed session. Fitness Center, they're at 668 members. Goodness.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
I had one comment, and since it's on my mind, I had to bring it up several times with status. Next year's budget, I would like some consideration on Savovich coming into the airport. It's needing some maintenance attention. I don't know how airport is, but we don't want to let it get too far gone. So,
Cheaper to maintain than to replace.
You've got to take care of asphalt.
yeah, that intersection, Roper, and it's got some big holes, and probably with the weight of the trucks that go through there, that. Anyway, just,
Yep. Yep, I'll put it on our list and talk with Blake with it.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Item B, Chief Executive Officer Report.
So no real update on the hangars. I've been out of town, as many of you know, for about the last 10 days over at the Defense Leadership Forum and then down at Spacecom and the Space Mobility Conference. Both absolutely exceptional. The Defense Forum in DC really assisted in putting us on the map with the movers and shakers in Washington, DC. That was an environment where they really didn't understand what Mojave was or the impact Mojave gave. So we were able to create that discussion there versus Spacecom, who all knows us and loves us, but wants to figure out how they can use more of us. So I thought rather than talk about the past and say, I once again met with CSUB, I once talk a little about the future, but we have to make certain Ariel doesn't have any sharp objects. So, so what was the mantra in Spacecom? The mantra in Spacecom was you got to go after vertical launch. You have to go after payload processing, and you have to go after overland recovery. So that was a constant story. Basically, the U.S. Space Force is saying that with the increase in access to space they're expecting in the future, I mean, you're in aerospace, you probably know this. There were 5 worldwide launches to space today. We used to get 1 or 2 a year, right? But with that proliferation, they would like to see Mojave be part of that. Some of their arguments is the 2508 complex opens that up.
is that, when you say, is that as a negative or a positive?
Positive.
Okay.
So an overland vertical launch has to have reasonable assurance that the vehicle can depart and not cause excessive damage on the ground. So the argument of 2508 is you already have restricted airspace. By definition, that's over somewhat austere land. And that may be enough of an argument. The further discussion ensued, well, then why is it so ridiculously expensive to pursue this? If it's a national imperative, why are we talking at tens of millions of dollars just to put your name in the hat? They didn't have a good answer for that. But they did acknowledge that these are major problems that we have to look at that. Payload processing would better support us here, but Vandenberg spoke very candidly that they simply are out of Schlitz at Vandenberg when it comes to payload processing. And if we had a payload processing center here, it's a short truck ride away for the satellite deliverables to be taken there. Vandenberg was very excited about that. And I'll be very candid. I don't want to get away from our core business model. We sell gas, we rent dirt. I'm not advocating for Mojave to go into the payload processing business. I'm advocating for Mojave to reach out to developers who might think of this as a business case and rent the land here at Mojave to pursue that business avenue.
Right.
Okay, can you give me just a general overview of what that means, payload processing? I assume it's something that's come back from space that needs to be processed.
So actually it's something going up to space, and I'm
Okay.
sure it would do the other side too.
Okay,
But all these satellites, and some of these satellites only cost in the billions with a B of dollars. Before they go into space, they all have to be fueled, propellant stabilized, batteries charged. The satellites all built. But all the transient stuff has to take place in short notice before the satellite's delivered for launch. So if we were in that, if we supported a company in that business, those satellites would then currently go to Vandenberg. If we were to somehow get a vertical launch in the future, or our horizontal launch capability became more robust, we could use that as a business case here as well. So that's banking a lot on the future there. I also wanted to bring to the board, and this is not asking for action, but it's more information than anything else under highlights. I'm disappointed with the status of our airport master plan.
Yeah.
And I met with BRPH out in Orlando. We spent quite a bit of time together. So we have been kicking this can down the road for quite a while. I want to get the staff together at an offsite to talk about a vision and some clear goals, objectives, and deliverables. We will then bring that to the board for the board's review, edit, commentary. And then we can pursue working with BRPH around that, structuring a functional airport master plan. Now, Carrie's not going to be happy with this. That's a considerable investment. So
But it's a
maybe
must. We have to have it.
we have to have it. Maybe the right thing to do is to defer that into next year's budget, where we could wrestle with the dollars more proactively versus reactively in the
Next
current
year
year's
or
money.
next year, next year.
Next budget cycle.
Okay,
5
months from now.
Right. So costs incurred today are difficult to adjust current budgetary cycles. You all know this. I apologize if I'm insulting your intelligence. So if we can defer it to the next budgetary cycle, we can make certain we're accommodating for that. We really have a functional idea of how much we can or cannot spend. And the reality is BRPH may come in and say, hey, we need this much money. And we say, well, we only have this for you. You know, I mean, we need to really look at where this is going. But in my opinion, I agree with you. This is a must do.
BRPH is who?
They're a sub to Mead and Hunt.
Okay.
So they're currently under an IDIQ to us. So all we have to do is add them to our IDIQ for this particular event. Well, those were my big highlights. Unless you want to hear about ESAP or CSUB talking to professors. And subject to your questions, board.
You know, there was talk, wish I could give you more information. During our previous, I think it was Tim, I think it was you, about a payload facility here at Mojave. What are you smiling about? You gonna talk about it?
I was
Oh,
sitting
wait,
there
there's more.
anticipating this question to pop up. So a couple notes. So BRPH did work March 21st, 2023. We had a planning conference for about 3 days concerning the spaceport and airport master plans. So I feel that there is some of that work that would help alleviate some of those costs because we had covered it. It was very fun. It was my second day at Mojave working on the spaceport master plan. In part of those spaceport airport master plan conversations that we had while BRPH was there was the conversation of the payload processing facility. We had started to plan that. Part of that was process hand in hand with AFRL. I'm not sure if it was, Carrie, do you remember if it was a grant or some sort of funding that was supposed to come through with AFRL in 2023? I believe it was summer of 2023. It was somewhere in the tune of about $5 million that they were looking to invest in facilities such as a payload processing facility here at Mojave. A lot of those conversations, I feel Jester already looking at me, centered around vertical launch capabilities or at least providing mission support to say like Vandenberg, Las Cruces, areas like that, as well as Space Force and Air Force research. So we had started the legwork on that. Unfortunately, AFRL decided to go a different path with that funding, so those payload processing facility plans had fallen by the wayside. But in that, we were able to come up with very important things like the where, the how, big one, how do we power it? Things like that. And hopefully we'll be able to brush off those documents, give them a good dusting off, and use some of that research to help alleviate our costs and provide a pretty good use case for any investors that are coming in. Dave, I did write a big note on my packet to forward all that documentation to you as soon as I find it.
Thank you.
Is that something that makes sense to promote an opportunity like that?
So, I would far prefer we be promoting the opportunity to a third-party investor that
That's what
brings.
An investor, exactly.
Right, so an external source. I don't want to perturbate our business model. We're not in the business model of doing satellite pre-processing.
No.
But I would welcome the tenant who wants to do that, the mission partner that wants to do that. And we can set conditions for their success. But I don't think it's a business model we want to get.
No, I don't think it is either. I just look at, because of our uniqueness, where we are, our location, everything, there are opportunities here. But sometimes investors, there's a disconnect.
Right,
You trigger a thought process that says, oh, and then to get them to start answering questions and realize, hey, there really is a need in this geographically, it makes a great sense. That's what I meant about promoting it.
mhm. And I think frankly, although I was not involved with the AFRL discussions, I think that's what they were thinking. Is let's get in front of that. But again,
Okay,
It's food for thought. That's good.
again, subject to your questions, board members.
Thank you, Ariel. Yes, thank you. Moving on to item 6, director comments on items not on the agenda. Any director comments? Being none, we'll dismiss this and move into closed session. Thank you. Mr. Nabe and Dr., will you please stick around?
Thank you.
The board on the status of Wilton versus Mass, Mass versus Aerospace Operations, Scott Glazer and Dragon Aviation. The board discussed real property negotiations for Hangar 965. No action was taken and no other items were discussed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nabe. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.